You know, when you look at modern supercars, like the ones rolling off assembly lines today, your McLarens, your top-tier Porsches, there is this overwhelming expectation of, well, absolute sterile perfection.
Right, it's basically aerospace engineering applied to asphalt.
Exactly. I mean, you have active aerodynamics adjusting wing angles in milliseconds. You have torque vectoring sending precise amounts of power to individual wheels.
And you have algorithms essentially intercepting your human errors before you even realize you've made them.
Yeah, it is entirely binary.
Totally. The onboard computer is constantly calculating the static coefficient of friction. It decides thousands of times a second whether you have traction or you don't. And if you approach the limit, the car subtly cuts the throttle or it pulses the brakes to keep you safe. We have engineered the danger out of the equation.
But in doing so, we've also kind of engineered out the communication between the road and the driver, right?
Absolutely. The analog feel is just gone.
Right, so to find the real soul of modern car culture, we have to unplug that supercomputer. We have to go back to an era before electronic stability control mandated our safety.
Step into the world of underground Japanese street racing in the mid-1990s.
Yes. And look at an automotive landscape that is delightfully, chaotically analog. So today we are taking a deep dive into how a fictional story about a bored teenager delivering tofu in an outdated hatchback fundamentally rewired the global automotive industry.
Not to mention skyrocketing a hyper-niche used car market.
Oh, completely. And it gave birth to a globally televised professional motorsport.
It is a massive cultural juggernaut.
It really is. So we've got a huge stack of sources on the table today for you. We're pulling from technical tuning guides, manga histories, the actual physics of weight transfer, and even travel itineraries for rural Japan.
Because the phenomenon of initial D didn't just stay ink on a page. I mean, it bled directly into reality.
And the premise is, like, completely absurd when you look at the raw number.
Well, on paper, it makes zero sense.
Right. We are exploring how a black and white, low-horsepower 1983 Toyota managed to canonically defeat 400 horsepower rotary engines and twin-turbo straight sixes.
Which is just wild.
It's crazy. So I want to jump right into 1995. Shuichi Shigeno begins serializing this story in Weekly Young Magazine. And what strikes me immediately about the protagonist, Takumi Fujiwara, is that he is the complete antithesis of the traditional sports hero.
Yeah, he is not a gearhead by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, he actively finds cars boring.
He is profoundly apathetic. I mean, when the series opens, Takumi is a high school student working a part-time job at a gas station.
Right.
And his friends are obsessing over Nissan Skylines and Mazda RX-7s, and Takumi doesn't even know what a rotary engine is.
He couldn't care less. But he has this hidden, almost cursed daily routine.
The tofu deliveries.
Exactly. Every single morning, at like 4 in the morning, long before the sun comes up, he is forced to drive his father's car up and down a local mountain pass to deliver tofu to a resort at the summit.
And that car is a 1983 Toyota Sprinter Truno, universally known by its chassis code, the AE86.
And his father, Bunta, who runs the Fujiwara Tofu shop, is this quiet, chain-smoking former racing legend.
Bunta is such a great character.
He really is. But Bunta isn't just making his son do chores. He is secretly running a 5-year, high-intensity driver training program.
And he does this through the legendary water cut method.
Right, which is just iconic.
It really is the central mythology of the series.
Yeah.
So to ensure the tofu doesn't get smashed into paste in the trunk during these mountain runs, Bunta places a standard paper cup filled to the brim with water in the AE86's cup holder.
And his instruction is super simple, right?
Yeah, he just says, don't spill a single drop.
Which, if you understand the physics of lateral G-forces, seems basically impossible on a mountain road with tight hairpins.
Oh, completely.
Like, if you turn the steering wheel sharply at 50 miles per hour, the inertia of the water wants to keep traveling in a straight line.
Right, it sloshes over the edge of the cup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to prevent that, Takumi has to fundamentally alter the laws of physics inside the cabin through his inputs.
He has to master load transfer.
Break that down for us, because it's so important.
Sure. So when you brake hard, the weight of a car shifts violently to the front tires. When you smash the throttle, it shifts to the rear.
Okay, that makes sense.
And any sudden input creates a spike in kinetic energy that will instantly spill the water. So Takumi learns to brake with incredibly smooth, progressive pressure.
You can't just stomp on the pedals.
Exactly. He learns to trace a perfect parabolic racing line through the corners, turning the steering wheel in one fluid, continuous arc.
Wow.
And by doing this, he utilizes centrifugal force to pin the water against the side of the cup without it ever sloshing over the brim.
And the incredible byproduct of this is drifting.
Yes.
Like, he isn't sliding the car around corners to show off for a crowd. There's no crowd at 4 in the morning.
Right. He is drifting because sliding all 4 tires at a controlled slip angle actually becomes the most fluid, efficient way to carry maximum momentum through a tight hairpin.
Without upsetting the chassis.
Precisely. It is entirely utilitarian. He just wants to get the delivery done quickly so we can go back to sleep.
And that psychological state is critical, isn't it?
It really is. By treating the drive as a tedious chore rather than a race, Takumi completely removes his own ego from the equation.
He's not trying to prove he's the best.
Right. He isn't fighting the car to prove his dominance. He is listening to the suspension, feeling the grip limit of the tires, and working in complete harmony with the machine.
Which taps into that core Japanese philosophical concept mentioned in the cultural essays we reviewed. Jinbei Itai.
The horse and rider as one.
Yes, because Western racing media at the time was hyper-focused on raw aggression, billionaire supercars, and the immense egos of Formula One drivers.
Oh, for sure. Shigeno flipped that entire strip.
He really did. Initial D focused on Touge, or mountain pass racing. It celebrated the working class, grassroots racer.
And Takumi achieves technical perfection specifically because of his emotional detachment and his symbiosis with that old AE86.
And this all explodes when the inciting incident happens. So the local amateur racing team in Takumi's town, the Akina Speed Stars, gets challenged by a heavily funded, highly technical team from out of town.
The Akagi Red Suns.
Right. And they were led by the Takahashi brothers, Ryosuke and Kisuke, who drive Mazda RX-7s.
Very expensive, very fast cars.
Yeah, and during a late-night practice run, Kisuke, in a bright yellow FD3S RX-7, which is an absolute weapon of a modern sports car, is utterly humiliated on a downhill section by a mysterious old black and white hatchback.
The ghost of Akina.
Exactly. Kisuke is pushing his state-of-the-art Mazda to the absolute limit, and this battered delivery car just drifts past him on the inside of hairpin like he's standing still.
It shatters his entire worldview.
It does. And when the official race night arrives, Takumi actually shows up in the AE86 with Fujiwara Tofu Shop painted on the side door.
Just a brilliant visual.
And he systematically dismantles Kisuke's RX-7 in front of a massive crowd. That spark ignites a narrative that spans decades.
It really sets the hook for the entire franchise.
I do have to push back a little on the mythology of this, though. Like, looking at the narrative structure outlined in the literary analysis sources, this is highly derivative of the Karate Kid trope, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like it's wax on, wax off, but replaced with deliver tofu, don't spill water. The unassuming master unknowingly trains the reluctant student through menial labor.
The structural parallels are definitely there, and Shigeno leans into them heavily. However, what elevates Initial D beyond a simple underdog sports trope is the excruciating level of mechanical realism he injects into fantasy.
Right, it's not magic.
No, Shigeno grounds the Karate Kid narrative in thermodynamics, suspension geometry, and highly specific geographical reality. He wasn't inventing fantasy racetracks, he was documenting actual roads.
Which brings us to the geography of speed. The story takes place on Mount Akina, which is a fictionalized name, but the sources are very clear that it is a one-to-one blueprint of a real location.
Mount Haruna.
Right. It's a dormant stratovolcano in Gunma Prefecture, about 150 kilometers northwest of Tokyo. And it is not an isolated case.
Not at all.
The other mountains in the series, Mount Akagi, Mount Myogi, Irohazaka, these are all explicitly real roads.
Gunma Prefecture was not a random choice by Shigeno. I mean, he grew up there, and long before Initial D was ever published, Gunma was the real-world epicenter of underground touch racing.
Why is that? What makes Gunma so special?
It's all due to its unique topography. These are not racetracks. These are mountain access roads carved directly into volcanic rock.
So they're rugged?
Very. They feature severe elevation changes, highly variable camber where the road crowns in the center for water drainage, and a grueling mix of high-speed sweepers leading instantly into blind first-gear hairpins.
I was reading through the travel itineraries, and it is fascinating how this deeply illegal, localized subculture has been exported globally.
Oh, it's a massive industry now.
It is. Sleepy rural Japanese towns like Shibukawa, the base of Mount Haruna, and the Ekaho Onsen Resort area have been completely transformed into massive automotive tourism hubs.
Right, you have places like the DZ Garage Racing Cafe.
Yes, serving panda-colored curry rice to match the car.
It's amazing.
And fans from all over the world are making pilgrimages to Gunma. They are literally renting sports cars, sometimes exact replicas of the AE86 or the RX-7, just to drive the exact routes depicted in the manga.
It has become an absolute mecca for JDM, or Japanese domestic market enthusiasts. But we should note, the travel sources we reviewed include some very severe warnings about this car.
Right, the fantasy of Initial D and the reality of modern Gunma are completely dwarfed.
Yes, because if you fly to Tokyo tomorrow, rent a pristine AE86 and head up to the 5 consecutive hairpins on Mount Haruna at 2 a.m.,
You are not going to experience a cinematic racing battle. You are going to experience the Japanese penal system.
without a doubt, street racing on public roads is highly illegal in Japan, and it comes with severe consequences.
Like what?
Heavy fines, immediate license revocation, vehicle impoundment, and potential imprisonment.
So they do not mess around.
No. And local authorities are intensely aware of the tourism draw. They actively monitor these specific passes. They have even installed speed bumps, known as cat's eyes, right in the center of the hairpins.
To physically prevent cars from drifting smoothly through them.
Exactly.
So the goal for a modern enthusiast visiting these passes has to be pure immersion, not speed. You go to appreciate the engineering of the road, the aggressive elevation changes, and just the scenery that inspired the art.
Right. If you want to push a car to its mechanical limits, the sources are unanimous. You take it to a licensed closed circuit track.
Exactly. The mountain provides the historical context, but surviving those blind corners, even at legal speeds, requires understanding the machinery.
Which perfectly transitions us to the absolute anomaly that is the AE86 itself.
Because you can have the perfect mindset, you can have the water cup training, but if the machine underneath you isn't capable, you're just going to end up in a guardrail.
Exactly.
So let's deconstruct the Hachiroku, 8.6 in Japanese. Specifically, the 1983 Toyota Sprinter Terreno GT Apex.
On paper, the AE86 is deeply unassuming. I mean, it was designed as an economy commuter car, a sporty hatchback for the masses.
Yeah, I was looking at the original factory spec sheets, and I was honestly so confused. The stock engine, the 4AGE, produces roughly 128 horsepower.
Right.
My standard daily driver crossover SUV has significantly more grunt than that. How on earth does a 128 horsepower car become the ultimate mountain racing weapon against cars pushing 300 to 400 horsepower?
The answer lies entirely in power-to-weight ratio and chassis balance.
Okay, explain that.
While the AE86 weighs under 1,000 kilograms, that's less than 2,200 pounds. It is incredibly light.
That's practically a go-kart by modern standards.
It really is. Plus, it is rear-wheel drive, and it boasts a near-perfect 50-50 weight distribution between the front and rear axles.
Which is ideal for handling.
Exactly. It is the ultimate analog machine. There is no power steering in the early models, no anti-lock brakes, no traction control.
So it's just raw driving.
Just a direct mechanical connection between the driver's inputs and the contact patch, the tire.
Reading through the physics breakdowns, the analogy that immediately came to mind is that the AE86 is a rusty scalpel, and cars like the Nissan Skyline GTR are broadsword.
I love that comparison.
Right, if you are fighting on an open battlefield or a straight highway, the broadsword annihilates the scalpel through sheer blunt force trauma. The horsepower just wins.
Of course.
But if you are fighting in a tight, twisting, confined hallway like a mountain path, you physically cannot swing the broadsword. It's too heavy, too cumbersome. The scalpel wins because of maneuverability and precision.
That is a phenomenal mechanical analogy, and it perfectly encapsulates the overarching physics lesson that Shigeno hammered home in every race. In downhill racing, gravity normalizes horsepower.
Break that down mechanically for us, because it is so counterintuitive to how we normally think about cars.
Yeah.
We always think more power equals faster.
Well, when you race uphill, the engine is fighting the immense force of gravity, pulling the mass of the car backward.
Makes sense.
So in an uphill battle, the car with the most power will almost always win because it can simply muscle its way up the incline.
Right.
But when the road tilts downward, gravity is pulling both cars toward the bottom of the mountain at the exact same rate. The 400 horsepower engine is no longer a massive advantage. In fact, it becomes a severe liability.
Because to get 400 horsepower in the 1990s, you needed heavy turbochargers, massive intercoolers, and heavy reinforced iron engine blocks.
Precisely. A bigger engine means a significantly heavier car.
And weight is the enemy of cornering.
Absolutely. A heavier car carries exponentially more momentum into a corner. That means the driver of the heavier car has to brake much earlier, just to shed that speed.
Oh, I see.
Furthermore, all that excess weight shifts forward under heavy braking, putting immense heat and stress on the front tires.
Which causes them to degrade and lose grip much faster over the course of a race.
Exactly. So the winner of the downhill Tudge battle isn't decided by who can accelerate the fastest in a straight line. It is decided by who can carry the most speed through the corners.
It is a battle of managing slip angles, perfecting braking points, and preserving tire life.
And the lightweight AE86 can brake much later, dive deeper into the corner, and carry higher cornering speeds simply because it isn't fighting its own mass.
That is fascinating. But as the narrative progresses, Takumi's rivals become increasingly absurd, like professional drivers in highly tuned supercars.
Yeah, the competition gets fierce.
And his father Bunta realizes the stock 128 horsepower just isn't going to cut it anymore. So he performs an engine swap, installing a TRD Toyota Racing Development Group, a 4AGELU engine.
Which completely changes the car.
I was reading about that Group A engine. That is a bespoke, highly restricted racing motor originally designed for the Japanese Touring Car Championship.
It's a legendary piece of engineering.
It revs to an astronomical 11,000 RPM and produces about 240 horsepower. But even with 240 horsepower, it's still going up against GTRs with nearly double that. How does an extra 100 horsepower suddenly bridge a gap that massive?
It bridges the gap because it fundamentally changes the power delivery while maintaining the featherweight footprint.
Okay, how so?
Well, the Group A engine doesn't add massive weight like a turbocharger would. It is naturally aspirated, meaning the power delivery is instantaneous.
There's no turbo lag.
Exactly. No waiting for exhaust gases to spool up a turbine. When Takumi presses the throttle mid-corner, he gets exactly the power he demands, the millisecond he demands it. This allows him to balance the car on the absolute ragged edge of traction using minute throttle adjustments.
It basically makes the scalpel sharper.
That's much sharper.
But this brings us to a crucial point in our sources. The manga makes this all look like a magical synchronized dance. But if we pull the curtain back and look at the brutal engineering reality of the AE86, our technical tuning guides do not pull any punches.
Oh, they definitely do not. Especially regarding the rear suspension.
Yeah, the suspension. This is where the physics of the anime sharply diverge from the reality of automotive engineering.
Very sharply. The rear suspension of the AE86 utilizes a four-link solid or rigid rear axle.
Explain the geometry of that, because it just sounds archaic.
It is archaic by today's standards. In a modern independent suspension system, the left and right wheels can move up and down completely independently of one another.
Right. If the left wheel hits a pothole, the suspension compresses, absorbs the shock, and the right wheel remains perfectly flat on the pavement.
Exactly. But in the AE86, the left and right rear wheels are physically connected by a single solid steel tube that houses the axle shafts.
The analogy I found helpful in the tuning forum is comparing it to carrying a heavy tray of drinks.
Okay, I like this.
So an independent suspension is like carrying that tray with bent knees and flexible elbows.
Yeah.
Someone bumps your shoulder, your joints absorb the shock, and the drinks stay level.
All right.
A solid rear axle is like carrying that tray with perfectly locked, rigid elbows and straight legs. Any bump to your body immediately tips the entire tray and spills the drinks.
That is a perfect visualization. If the left rear wheel of an AE86 hits a bump on a mountain road, that shock travels straight through the rigid axle and violently upsets the right rear wheel.
So the whole thing just jumps.
Yes, the entire rear end of the car will skip or hop sideways.
And mountain roads are inherently bumpy. They have uneven camber, debris, potholes.
Exactly. On a perfectly smooth racing circuit, a solid axle can be managed. But on a Tudge, drifting an AE86 requires an almost suicidal level of bravery and anticipation.
Because it's unpredictable.
Extremely. The car does not slide smoothly and predictably like a modern Nissan Z or a Toyota Supra. When a solid rear axle binds up and skips over uneven pavement, the car snap oversteers violently.
So you go from having perfect grip to instantly spinning backward toward a sheer cliff face.
In the blink of an eye.
Which makes the fact that people try to emulate this in real life terrifying.
It's very dangerous.
And speaking of terrifying real-life emulation, we have to talk about the most famous technique in the entire franchise. Takumi's ultimate weapon, the gutter run.
The Mitsutoshi, it is the defining mechanical magic trick of the series.
The mechanics of it are fascinating. As Takumi approaches a tight hairpin, he intentionally drives slightly off the paved road and drops his inside tires into the concrete drainage ditch that runs alongside the mountain pass.
It sounds crazy, but there's math behind it.
Right. The inside edge of the tires physically hooks onto the lip of the ditch, This creates a mechanical lock that counteracts the centrifugal force pulling the car to the outside of the corner
It essentially allows him to completely bypass the limits of tire grip.
and take the corner at a mathematically impossible speed.
And from a pure vacuum-sealed physics standpoint, the theory is sound.
Wait, really?
Yeah. In gravel rally racing, a highly similar technique actually exists called ditch hooking or rut hooking, where drivers use deep ruts in the dirt to catch the wheels and pivot the car.
Oh, wow. So Shigeno took that real-world dirt racing concept and applied it to asphalt.
Exactly.
But the tuning guides and travel sources we have are very explicit about what happens if you try this on a Japanese mountain road today.
It is catastrophic. You cannot do it.
Why not?
Well, the drainage gutters on roads like Mount Haruna are not smooth, perfectly shaped, semicircular channels. They are deep, jagged, V-shaped concrete trenches.
Ouch.
And they're filled with wet leaves, sharp volcanic rocks, and heavy metal drainage grates.
So if you are flying into a corner at 60 miles an hour and you drop a tire into that trench,
You do not magically pivot around the apex. You catastrophically destroy your vehicle.
the shock load of a wheel slamming into a jagged concrete edge while under extreme lateral G-force has to be immense.
It is. You will instantly shatter your cast iron tie rods, completely bend your lower control arms, and likely crack the wheel rim in half.
That's best case scenario.
Right. Worst case scenario, the tire catches a sharp edge, acts as a pivot point, and uses the car's own kinetic energy to violently flip the vehicle over onto its roof.
It's an instant total loss.
Absolutely.
But, understanding that physical reality actually makes me appreciate the manga more.
How so?
Well, Shigeno wasn't just drawing cars going fast. He created a highly believable magic system for his universe, based entirely on automotive engineering.
That's a great way to put it.
Like in a fantasy novel, you have rules for how mana and spells work. In Initial D, the rules of magic are the laws of thermodynamics, load transfer, and suspension geometry. The Gutter Run is Takumi's ultimate high-risk spell.
It's a brilliant narrative device. But to ensure that this magic system was believable enough to pass muster with real hardcore car enthusiasts, Shigeno couldn't just rely on his imagination.
He needed an expert.
He needed a real-world wizard to validate the physics. And he found one in Kichi Tsuchiya.
The Door King, the Drifter.
Yes.
Tsuchiya served as the editorial supervisor and the primary technical consultant for the Initial D anime and manga. And his own life story is so closely mirrored by Takumi's that it honestly borders on biographical.
It really does. Tsuchiya is a legendary figure in Japanese motorsport. He began his professional career back in the 1977 Fuji Freshman Series.
But he wasn't like the other drivers, right?
No, unlike many of his wealthy peers who came up through expensive karting academies, Tsuchiya was a working class guy. He honed his car control skills in the underground street racing scene on the mountain passes of Japan.
And he actually got his racing license suspended because of it. I was reading about this infamous videotape from 1987 called Plusty.
Oh, the Plusty video is a massive piece of automotive history.
Tell us about it.
So Tsuchiya worked with several automotive magazines to produce a video of himself drifting his personal tuned AE86 on public mountain passes.
So totally illegal.
Highly illegal, entirely unfiltered. And when the Japan Automobile Federation found out about it, they temporarily suspended his professional racing license.
Which sounds bad, but it kind of backfired, didn't it?
Oh, completely. The tape went incredibly viral within the car community. It established him as an absolute folk hero.
What fascinates me is how he translated those illegal street skills into legitimate world-class racing. Because he didn't just stay a street racer.
No, he raced in NASCAR exhibitions, Japanese touring cars.
And he even finished second overall at the grueling 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1999, driving the carbon fiber Toyota GT1 prototype.
Which is incredible.
How does drifting an old Corolla on a mountain translate to endurance racing at Le Mans?
It translates through the absolute mastery of slip angles and tire management.
Okay, explain how that connects.
Well, before Tsuchiya, traditional grip racers viewed drifting with intense disdain. They saw it as slow, reckless, and a great way to destroy a set of tires in 5 minutes.
Just burning rubber for fun.
Right. But Tsuchiya proved that intentionally breaking traction wasn't about losing control. It was about operating in a state of hyper-control beyond the limit of grip.
So, by knowing exactly how a car behaves when it loses traction, he knew exactly how to keep it balanced right on the edge without pushing over it.
Exactly. When he was racing at Le Mans for 24 straight hours, he could manage the degradation of his tires better than anyone else because he had spent a decade feeling the microscopic changes in the grip on wet, uneven mountain roads.
That is wild. And he brought that unparalleled technical authenticity directly to Initial D.
He really did. He ensured that when characters discussed trail braking, they were explaining it perfectly.
Oh, right. For you listening, trail braking is the act of keeping light pressure on the brake pedal while turning to keep the front suspension compressed and the front tires loaded with weight for maximum grip.
Right. Tsuchiya also ensured the animation of heel-toe downshifting was completely accurate.
Heel-toe is so cool. It's this complex footwork technique where your right foot is simultaneously pressing the brake pedal with the ball of your foot while rolling your heel over to flip the gas pedal.
It takes a lot of practice.
It does. It matches the engine RPM to the wheel speed before you drop the clutch,
Right.
which prevents the rear wheels from locking up and sending you into a spin during a downshift.
Having Tsuchiya on board meant this wasn't just a cartoon. It was an animated masterclass in high-performance driving.
He legitimized the entire culture.
Much like Tony Hawk took skateboarding from empty pools and parking lots and elevated it into a globally recognized professional sport through his sheer skill and media presence.
Tsuchiya did the exact same thing for Mountain Pass drifting.
He really did.
And just as Tony Hawk's video games had iconic genre-defining punk rock soundtracks that became inseparable from the sport, Initial D had a sonic element that became utterly indistinguishable from the visual of cars going sideways.
Oh, the music. We have to talk about the music.
Yes, let's delve into the sensory experience of the anime. We have to dissect the phenomena of Eurobeat.
The pairing of Initial D and Eurobeat is a cultural anomaly of the highest order.
It makes absolutely no sense on paper, yet it is flawlessly executed.
Totally flawless.
For context, if you haven't seen the show, the anime soundtrack is almost exclusively composed of a genre called Eurobeat. These are tracks like Deja Vu, Running in the 90s, and Gas, Gas, Gas.
Primarily produced by Italian artists like Dave Rogers.
Right. It is characterized by high energy, synthesized brass, aggressively melodramatic English vocals, and blisteringly fast tempos, usually hovering around 150 to 170 beats per minute.
And the burning question is, why did an underground, hyper-technical Japanese street racing anime pair its most intense action sequences with obscure, high BPM Italian club music?
I was looking into the acoustic theory and the psychological effects of this pairing, and it is a stroke of cinematic genius.
How so?
At 150 to 170 BPM, the rhythm of Eurobeat perfectly aligns with the elevated heart rate of a human being in a state of high stress or a flow state. It physically induces adrenaline in the viewer. That makes total sense. Furthermore, the rhythmic pendulum-like transitions of a car drifting through a series of S-curves, snapping from left to right, perfectly match the driving forward drum patterns of the music.
It synchronizes the mechanical action with the biological reaction. And there is a brilliant acoustic layering at play as well.
Tell me about the acoustics.
The high-frequency saw wave synthesizers that are prominent in Eurobeat actually occupy a very similar audio frequency band to the sound of tires squealing on asphalt.
Wait, really? That's incredible.
Yes. By layering these tracks over the racing scenes, the anime essentially masks the harsh, grating noise of tire friction and blends it into a musical harmonic experience.
Well, the tire squeal literally becomes part of the instrumentation. Not only that, but the sound directors timed the musical structures to the narrative beats. Eurobeat relies heavily on massive, explosive transitions from the verse into the chorus.
Oh, the beat drops are legendary.
They are, and the anime timings are meticulous. The exact millisecond Takumi executes a flawless overtake or drops his tire into the gutter. The chorus of the song drops.
It creates an incredible tension and release mechanism that leaves the viewer just breathless.
It creates a deeply ingrained Pavlovian response. You hear the opening synth notes of Deja Vu and your adrenaline immediately spikes.
Regardless of whether you are watching a car race or just sitting at your desk.
True. And this music was so infectious that it birthed an entirely new meme culture in the late 2000s and 2010s on platforms like YouTube and Vine.
Oh, the memes are everywhere.
People began layering Eurobeat over videos of everything from real-life car crashes to shopping cart races to people slipping on ice.
And that massive internet culture kept the Initial D franchise incredibly relevant globally, decades after the original broadcast.
So we had this perfect storm. A deeply relatable underdog narrative, hyper-accurate automotive physics, validated by a legendary racing driver, and a soundtrack that actively manipulates your heart rate.
It's no wonder this didn't just stay an entertainment property.
Right. It created a global shockwave that crashed directly into the real-world economy. Let's look at the financial fallout, starting with what enthusiasts bitterly refer to as the tofu tax.
The tofu tax is a staggering study in macroeconomic influence driven by pop culture.
Because before Initial D became a global phenomenon, the Toyota AE86 was largely viewed by the general public as a discarded, outdated economy car.
It was incredibly cheap. A teenager in the 90s could pick up a decent running example for maybe $1,500.
It was the quintessential starter car for broke enthusiasts wanting to learn how to turn a wrench.
But as the manga and anime exploded, an entire generation of fans wanted to be Takumi Fujiwara,
They wanted the Panda Chueno, they wanted the pop-up headlight.
and suddenly demand vastly outstripped a dwindling 20-year-old supply.
And the inflation was catastrophic for the average enthusiast. A car that was once $1,500 became a highly sought-after, appreciating collector's item.
According to the market data in our sources, pristine, low-mileage examples of the AE86 have recently demanded prices upwards of $64,000 at auction.
$64,000 for an 80s Corolla with 128 horsepower and a solid rear axle.
It's just nuts when you really think about it.
That is the tofu tax.
Yeah.
It is the massive premium you pay solely because a piece of metal was featured in a popular anime.
And this wasn't restricted to just Toyota.
Right, the whole JDM scene felt it.
The entire Japanese domestic market experienced this massive inflation. Mazda RX-7s, Nissan Skyline GTRs, Mitsubishi Lancer Evolutions.
And this was heavily compounded in the United States by the 25-year import rule, wasn't it?
Oh, massively.
So the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards and EPA regulations dictate that you cannot legally import a non-conforming foreign vehicle into the United States until it is exactly 25 years old.
Right, so for decades, American fans were watching this anime, playing the arcade games, and building an immense pent-up demand for cars they were legally forbidden from owning.
And the moment the clock struck midnight and those cars turned 25 years old, American buyers flooded the Japanese used car market with massive amounts of capital.
It created global bidding wars that permanently altered the valuation of 90s Japanese sports cars.
And while the fans were buying up the cars, the actual motorsport of drifting evolved from illegal mountain runs into massive, sanctioned global events.
Initial D directly paved the way for the D1 Grand Prix in Japan, and shortly after, Formula Drift in the United States.
Drifting is now a multi-million-dollar professional sport with massive corporate sponsorships, custom-built 1,000 horsepower cars, and stadium events.
It's fascinating to contrast this deeply technical obsession with the other massive car culture phenomenon of that era, Hollywood's Fast and Furious franchise.
Oh, that's a great comparison. They represent two entirely divergent philosophies of automotive culture.
Clearly do.
The Fast and the Furious was incredibly flashy. It was about neon underglow, massive speaker systems in the trunk, hitting a button to spray nitrous oxide, and drag racing in a straight line for a quarter mile. It was pure Hollywood spectacle.
While Initial D was almost pedantic in its technicality, it was about limited slip differential lockup ratios, suspension geometry, and tire pressure management.
It proved to an entire generation of global enthusiasts that the intimate mechanical connection between a driver and their machine mattered far more than raw brute horsepower.
It inspired kids not just to add cosmetic neon lights, but to import right-hand drive cars and literally sit there translating Japanese suspension catalogs just so they could perfectly tune their vehicles' turn-in response.
Which highlights a profound, somewhat tragic irony.
What's that?
Well, Initial D is fundamentally a story about a working-class kid who drives a cheap, outdated car, uses cheap replacement parts because his family has no money, and utilizes pure skill to defeat wealthy kids in expensive supercars.
Right.
But the story was so successful that it ultimately made those cheap working-class cars far too expensive for regular kids to ever buy today.
I see what you mean.
The passionate fan base literally priced themselves out of the culture they idolized. The underdog's weapon became a luxury status symbol.
The irony is inescapable, but the cultural phenomenon was so powerful, so deeply ingrained in the global psyche, that its impact reached the very top of the automotive food chain.
It actually forced the hand of the largest, most conservative automaker in the world, Toyota.
Toyota executives are notoriously pragmatic.
Yes, they are. But they couldn't ignore the enduring, passionate fan base that the AE86 had cultivated decades after they stopped building.
They realized that Initial D had created a massive market demand for an affordable, lightweight, rear-wheel drive sports car that prioritized handling and joy over raw power.
And so, in 2012, they built a spiritual successor. In collaboration with Subaru, Toyota released the GT86, also known as the Scion FRS and the Subaru BRZ.
They explicitly designed it to capture the ethos of Takumi's car. It was relatively low horsepower, incredibly well balanced, and used naturally aspirated engines.
They even made the bore and stroke of the engine, exactly 86 by 86 millimeters, as a direct homage to the AE86.
Toyota fully embraced it. They literally use initial D characters and manga-style animation in their official marketing campaigns for the newer generation, the GR86.
They recognized that preserving the analog soul of driving wasn't just a nod to fans, it was highly lucrative business.
Which serves as the perfect bridge into the modern era of this universe, because Shuichi Shigeno didn't stop with Takumi.
Right. As the real-world automotive landscape shifted dramatically toward electrification and automation, Shigeno responded with the sequel series. Let's delve into MF Ghost.
MF Ghost started serialization in 2017, and the anime adaptation premiered in 2023. It takes place in the same universe as Initial D, but it is set in the near future, the 2020s.
And the societal backdrop of this series is drastically different from the 1990s mountain passes.
Completely different. In the world of MF Ghost, the transition to autonomous, self-driving electric vehicles is complete. EVs are the absolute norm for daily transport.
The internal combustion engine is viewed as a dirty, obsolete relic of a bygone era.
But against this sterilized, automated backdrop, a massive, globally broadcast racing organization called MFG is formed.
It was founded by none other than Ryosuke Takahashi, mastermind from the original series. MFG hosts highly regulated races for internal combustion engine cars on closed public mountain roads.
It is a sanctuary for the mechanical arts.
The protagonist is a young, half-Japanese, half-British driver named Kanata Katagiri, who, in a brilliant narrative tie-in, was actually trained in the UK by a now legendary Takumi Fujiwara.
Full circle.
Exactly. And Kanata enters this grueling mountain racing series driving, what else? A relatively low-powered Toyota GT86.
And he is going up against the Divine 15.
A group of elite drivers piloting the absolute pinnacle of modern European engineering. We are talking Ferrari 488 GTBs, Lamborghini Huracans, Porsche 911 GT3s.
It is David versus Goliath.
But the Goliath has 600 horsepower and active aerodynamics.
But the critical element of MF Ghost, the mechanic that makes the racing viable, is the MFG grip-to-weight ratio rule.
Explain how that rule works, because it's a brilliant piece of speculative motorsport engineering.
The grip-to-weight ratio rule strictly regulates the maximum width of a car's tires based directly on the total weight of the vehicle.
Okay.
So heavy supercars with massive V10 engines are forced to run relatively narrow tires for their size, severely limiting their mechanical grip.
Oh, wow.
Conversely, lightweight, low-horsepower cars like Kanata's GT86 are allowed to run tires that maximize their cornering potential.
So it artificially levels the playing field. It ensures that a billionaire can't just buy a Ferrari, slap incredibly wide racing slicks on it, and dominate purely through wealth and brute force.
The regulations demand that tire management, suspension tuning, and sheer driver skill remain the absolute deciding factors of the race.
It is Shigeno Ei's explicit commentary on the current trajectory of the automotive industry, isn't it?
Absolutely. MF Ghost acts as an underground resistance movement. While the rest of the world is riding around as passive passengers in silent, sterile, self-driving electric pods, the drivers in MFG are fighting to keep the loud, messy, deeply challenging mechanical art of the combustion engine alive.
If we look at Shigeno's collective works, from Initial D in 1995 to MF Ghost today, he has meticulously documented a profound cultural shift.
It's been 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years ago, the internal combustion engine was just a utilitarian tool for transport. Today, for enthusiasts, the manual car has become a medium for pure human expression.
It is one of the few ways left to interface with the physical world in a manner that requires intense skill, total focus, and genuine passion.
We've traced an incredible lineage today. We started by looking at a bored teenager trying not to spill water in a cheap delivery car.
And we've seen how that single localized narrative exploded outward to change automotive engineering,
Resurrect Italian dance music,
inflate global economic markets.
and birth a professional motorsport.
Yeah,
The legacy of Mount Akina is undeniable.
it really is.
And for you, the listener, the core lesson of the Hachiroku remains as potent today as it was in 1995.
Whether you are a hardcore gearhead spending your weekends covered in grease under a chassis, or you're just someone who deeply appreciates a masterclass in skill over brute force.
The truth is clear. True technique, profound understanding and raw passion can always outmaneuver raw power,
The lightweight scalpel can and will defeat the heavy broadsword.
provided it is in the hands of a master who understands the physics of the fight.
Which brings us full circle to the very beginning of our conversation.
Yes, we discussed the sterile, algorithm-driven perfection of modern supercars.
And as we look at the speculative fiction of MF Ghost, we realize that this future isn't a fiction anymore. It is arriving right now.
We are rapidly, inevitably, approaching an era where artificial intelligence will drive us everywhere with flawless, sterile perfection.
There will be no missed shifts, no sliding tires, no spilled water.
A completely binary, perfectly safe world.
Exactly. So the provocative question we are left with is this. When that day inevitably arrives, will driving a manual transmission car become something akin to horseback riding?
Wow, that's a powerful comparison.
Will it transition from a daily necessity into a lost ancient martial art practiced only by a dedicated few who are desperately seeking to feel a physical, imperfect, and dangerous connection to the world around them?
That is a phenomenal thought to leave on. The next time you get behind the wheel, take a second to feel the vibration of the engine through the floorboards. Feel the resistance of the steering wheel as the tires search for grip, and ask yourself, are you driving the machine or is the machine driving you?